All right, Peter. You've done enough schmoozing. This committee is always gratified to be in a position to help the Senate confirm nominees that previously distinguished themselves as esteemed members of its staff. That's why I'm especially delighted to welcome Peter Levine, who appears before us today as the President's nominee to serve as Deputy Chief Management Officer. So I also like to welcome his wife, Mary Ellen, and his son, Daniel. Daniel, we thank you both for lending Peter to his country and service once again. Having served as staff director and before that as general counsel of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Peter has gained keen insight into how the Department of Defense operates and how it is managed. He has an in-depth understanding of the challenges that confront its senior-most managers in ensuring that the Pentagon provides our nation's defense effectively and responsibly. Peter also knows how inherently challenging the position of DCMO is. He's seen how the department does business, especially in the area of financial improvement and business transformation, critical areas over which the DCMO has a critical oversight role. Peter, the task lies ahead of you. Few people outside Washington truly appreciate the challenge the department faces in the area of management, business transformation, and financial management. Measured by dollars, people, or global missions, the Department of Defense is quite possibly the largest, most complex single organization in the world. With this size and complexity comes difficulties in management. Comptroller General, Congress's independent watchdog, has continually listed DoD as high risk and vulnerable to fraud, waste, abuse, and mismanagement. The Department of Defense is unique in that it is the only large federal agency that cannot even undergo a financial statement audit of its balance sheet. This committee, with Mr. Levine's help, has spent a great deal of time and energy working on specific challenges at DoD in the areas of weapons system acquisition, business transformation, IT system implementation, financial management, and supply chain management. To date, none of these risk areas have been removed from GAO's high-risk list, but I'm optimistic that with Mr. Levine's leadership and partnership with this committee, we will make great progress, which will benefit both the warfighter and the taxpayer. While efforts to improve business systems, cut costs, and find waste at the Department of Defense are used to identify savings, it's also to gain knowledge and understanding about how the department works. Former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates said back in 2011, quote, "The current apparatus for managing people and money across the DoD enterprise is woefully inadequate." That came from the Secretary of Defense at the time. He went on to say, it was, quote, "nearly impossible to get accurate information and answers to questions such as, how much money did you spend and how many people do you have?" Secretary Gates also mentioned that the result of these shortfalls in information was that he could not measure results or make judgments about priorities for the military. There's something very wrong when the Secretary of Defense cannot get answers to simple questions or know how or whether the agencies under his control achieve their intended results. Fixing these weaknesses and improving the management of the Pentagon is not the job of any one person. All Pentagon leaders must be investigated in this work from the Secretary on down, and Congress must never forget its critical role in this area. But this work goes directly to the heart of what the Deputy Chief Management Officer is all about: empowering the Secretary of Defense with timely and accurate information to assess whether the department is achieving its goals, streamlining bureaucracy and cutting through red tape to enable the military services to put their full effort toward achieving their missions, not filling out paperwork, and holding leaders accountable for failing to change or adopt better practices, while at the same time rewarding managers who learn from mistakes and succeed in transformation. Peter, this is no small task, but I assure you that if confirmed, you will have a committed partner in this committee. Again, I thank the witness for his willingness to serve and look forward to hearing from the witness on this important matter. This committee has the well-deserved reputation for acting 99% of the time in a bipartisan fashion. A lot of that comes from the interaction between the staffs on both sides of the aisle, no matter who is in the majority. And Peter, over many years as service to Senator Levin, as well as other members of this committee, you have made a significant contribution to maintaining that environment of bipartisanship. Not to mention, though, however, that you and I have had spirited conversations on occasion in the past. Senator Reid.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me echo your comments about the spirit that Peter has helped keep alive, and I know he will continue to do that at the Department of Defense. I want to welcome Peter and Mary Ellen and Daniel. Thank you very much. One indication of success is that the people that you led are strongly behind you, and literally they are, because the entire Democratic PSM staff is here for this hearing to cheer you on and secretly send messages to you so that you get the answers right. But anyway, the chairman has gone into great detail and very accurate detail about the incredible contributions you've made to the committee. You originally came in 1996. You've been the general counsel, the staff director. You've been a trusted advisor to the senators on both sides of the aisle. You've been a mentor to the professional staff. You have made us all a little wiser and a little better prepared to face the challenges of a very difficult and dangerous world. Many of the pieces of legislation that you worked with have profoundly reshaped the Pentagon, and there's a lot more that has to be done. You've been a major force in developing a government-wide procurement reform initiatives for the Pentagon, I should say, including the Weapons System Acquisition Reform Act of 2009. And again, that was really due to your staff efforts, but the leadership of Senator Levin and Senator McCain. This was a tribute to their vision as well as your efforts. And you've developed mechanisms to streamline the department's workforce to help the Pentagon maintain this workforce. And you've also led efforts in the Senate to combat waste, fraud, and abuse in the Pentagon acquisition, stretching back to your days not just on this committee, but when you were on the Government Affairs Committee. We will miss you, your knowledge of the laws, your analytical ability, your determination, your professionalism, but we will recognize that we're benefiting and the Pentagon is benefiting and the nation is benefiting from those skills in your new position as Deputy Chief Management Officer for the Department of Defense. The DCMO position is charged with improving the management of the Department of Defense, and it does need improvement. As such, and especially in these constrained budget times, you'll be challenged to support warfighters while making very difficult choices about eliminating low-priority functions, cutting costs, but maintaining capacity and, in fact, enhancing capacity. And those are very difficult, in fact, sometimes contradictory challenges. So you'll be charged with leading the modernization efforts, and we have every confidence you will do it well, as you've done everything well. We look forward to working with you. And again, let me thank the chairman for scheduling this hearing. And Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Before your statement, as you know, there are standard questions that have to be answered for the record, which I will go into now. In order to exercise its legislative and oversight responsibilities, it is important that this committee and other appropriate committees of the Congress be able to receive testimony. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
I have.
Have you assumed any duties or undertaken any actions which would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
I have not.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established for requested communications, including questions for the record and hearings?
I will.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
I will.
Will those witnesses be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes.
Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify upon request before this committee?
I do.
Do you agree to provide documents, including copies of electronic forms of communication in a timely manner when requested by a duly constituted committee, or to consult with the committee regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such documents?
I do.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Reid, members of the committee, first, let me thank you for those very generous remarks that you made at the outset. You're absolutely right about the challenges, management challenges facing the Department of Defense. And as I if confirmed, take those on. It will be a great comfort to know that this committee is supportive of that effort. It's my pleasure to appear before you today as the President's nominee for the position of Deputy Chief Management Officer of the Department of Defense. I'd like to thank the President, Secretary Carter, and Deputy Secretary Work for selecting me for this position. I'd also like to thank my wife, Mary Ellen, and my son, Daniel, who, both of whom are with me today. You've mentioned them, for all their love, support, and understanding over the years, and I would not be here without them. This committee established the DCMO position in an effort to address the broken business practices and bureaucratic inefficiencies that cause DoD management programs and support functions to take too long, cost too much, and produce less than optimal results. I believe that an active DCMO, with the support of the Secretary and Deputy Secretary, can make a real difference. If confirmed, I will strive to institute more effective management practices and to take on the waste and inefficiency that needlessly squander the taxpayers' money and the Department's resources. Mr. Chairman, it has been my privilege and honor to serve on the staff of the Armed Services Committee for almost 20 years. I could not have asked for a more rewarding place to work, for better people to work with and for, or for a better learning experience, and I thank all of you, members and staff, for that. I know that I have more to learn, but if confirmed, I will bring a piece of the Armed Services Committee with me to the Department of Defense. That concludes my opening statement, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. The issue of continuing interest of this committee, as you know, is the inability of the Department of Defense to pass a financial statement audit. The current audit deadline is that starting in 2017, the DoD will be audit ready. Do you think that's going to be the case?
Senator, Mr. Chairman, I've always tried to be honest with members of this committee and give my best assessment, and I have always been skeptical that the 2017 deadline will be met, and I can't change my stripes just because I'm sitting down here at the witness
Why do you
stand.
think that they've never been able to do that?
First,
People ask me that all the time.
Looking at the problem of an auditable financial statement for the Department of Defense, you have to keep in mind that it is the biggest entity in the world. We have hundreds of millions of transactions every year and billions of historic transactions. And an individual taxpayer or a small business may be able to put their receipts in a shoebox and add them up at the end of the year and balance their books. But an entity the size of a Department of Defense simply can't do that. We have to have systems and processes in place that work and that produce good financial information. And when we get those systems and processes in place, it will not only provide us an auditable financial statement, but it will answer that question that Senator Gates had about why he can't get good answers to his questions when he needs to make a decision. I think we've made significant progress, really going back to when Deputy Secretary England took this on as a challenge in about 2005 when he became Deputy Secretary. I think that Mr. Hale, as comptroller, has continued that effort, and I think that it's now foreseeable to me that we can get to an auditable financial statement. I just don't believe we'll make it by 2017.
As you remember, a couple of years ago, as part of not Department of Defense, but in my role, and I was a member of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation, we discovered that the Air Force spent over $1 billion, many years of mismanaging what was supposed to be a commercial off-the-shelf system. It was known as the ECSS, Expeditionary Combat Support System. No one was held responsible. What do I tell taxpayers at the next town hall meeting? That we wasted $1 billion on a program that never got it even begun at all, and no one was held responsible. What's your solution to that?
So, Senator, first, I worked with your staff on that review, and I share their views and your views of that. It is absolutely unacceptable. What I'll say is the failures that you identified in your report on ESS, lack of planning, lack of a firm requirement, changing requirements, lack of commitment to the commercial nature of the system are systemic problems that we have in the acquisition of business systems through the Department of Defense, and we created the DCMO in part to make sure that that doesn't happen.
So I take it that one of your jobs is going to be one of your priorities is going to hold people responsible, because just your appointment isn't going to eliminate those.
It will be one of my jobs to review to review business system programs for the Department of Defense to make sure that they're doing the planning that they need to do, that they have the governance processes
Does
that
that
they
mean
need
you-
to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Does that mean you're going to hold people accountable?
Senator, the people that need to be held accountable don't actually report to the DCMO, so it will be the job of others
will
to
you
hold them
identify-
accountable. I will be, yes, Senator, I will help identify people who need to be held accountable. I think that's a fair, yes.
Thank you. In a recent audit, GAO noted that a majority of major IT programs didn't, and we know how important in this day and age IT programs are, didn't establish baseline cost and schedule estimates within 2 years of program initiation. In fact, it took over 5 years and nearly $500 million to be spent before baseline cost and schedule estimates were created for 12 major IT systems. Isn't the IT system issue of highest importance?
I will make it an issue of the highest importance, yes, Senator.
And do you think you can fix the problem?
I think we can do far, far better than we have done, and we need to do far, far better than we have done.
Do you have the confidence of the Secretary of Defense?
I believe that I will, yes.
Good. And as you know, from time to time, as a member of the staff of this committee, we have been frustrated with sometimes the lack of complete and timely information from the Department of Defense, and I hope that you will also make sure that we do receive that information in a timely and accurate fashion.
I have shared that frustration, and I will do my best to be as responsive as possible. I certainly understand the problem.
Some of your comments I will keep on record to provide to you in case we do have difficulties in that area, Peter.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Thank
It
you.
was my beloved friend Morris Udall who once said the politician's prayer is that the words that I utter today be tender and sweet because tomorrow I may have to eat them. So thank you. Senator Reid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And again, Peter, thank you for your service to the Congress. You were there in 2008 when this office was created. So briefly, can you give an assessment of what it's done positively and where are still the failings, what it hasn't lived up to?
This committee was responsible for creating the position of DCMO, and it was created for the reasons that Senator McCain laid out in his opening statement, because the committee did not believe that the department was paying enough attention to the management issues that end up leading to waste and inefficiency and costing the department so much money. And the idea, it actually started with an amendment by Senator Byrd to create a second deputy secretary who was going to be a deputy secretary for management, and it evolved to where the deputy secretary would be the CMO, and he would be assisted by a DCMO. The idea was to elevate the issue of management within the department and give it top-level attention so that we could address some of these problems that just seem to go on from year to year to year and never be solved. There has been only one DCMO to date, one Senate-confirmed DCMO to date. I think she worked hard. I don't think she had the support at the top level of the department that she needed to really take on some of these bigger problems. I've been assured that I will have that support, and I hope to have that support, and I hope to take on the big management problems that have been of concern to this committee for so long.
Thank you. Senator McCain alluded to in his questions about the IT systems, but, you know, the Pentagon is the biggest enterprise in the world, but there are lots of big companies that are audited every year, and they're pretty complicated and complex, and I guess it begs the question, what can you learn from the private sector, and not just studying them, but, you know, adopting some of their mechanisms, helping them, you know, getting advisors coming in who are management experts to tell you how you should do things differently at the Pentagon?
We need to do all of that, and there's some mechanisms in the department for doing that. There's some authorities we've given the department to do that kind of thing, and the department has not taken full advantage of the authority it has in that regard. So we'll want to bring in expertise from the private sector and do whatever we can to draw on that.
I know the Secretary has a business sort of advisors group. I don't know the official title, but
The Defense Business Board.
and I would assume you're going to be looking to them for sort of, or work closely with them for advice and and insight.
My understanding is that they are available to assist in these areas and to provide advice, and I hope that we'll be able to draw on that advice. Yes, sir.
The one aspect, too, here of the auditability and everything is that, you know, sometimes the fault is not on our stars but on ourselves, and some of the congressional requirements that we place make it very difficult to manage. Are you going to look also at sort of the structures we give you to operate? I mean, we don't have the same type of capital budget, for example, in the Pentagon that you'd find in most big private enterprises. Are you going to be able to give us advice, too, about what changes we should make?
Senator Reid, I think there is an awful lot that can be done to improve the way the department works without legislation. I think there's lots of ripe targets there. If I identify something that does need legislation or an area where we do need congressional help, of course, I will come back to you and ask for that.
And just a final point, and more of a comment than the question, but you know, information technology is so critical to businesses today to be agile and to be proficient and productive, and some of the systems that you know that you're operating are antiquated, to be kind.
I'm hearing about COBOL-based systems and Fortran-based systems. Yes, yes.
Well, that's encouraging, because those are the last computer languages that I learned in 1967 and 69. So there's a place for me over there programming Fortran and BASIC. So I you know, maybe I'll withdraw the question. I think you keep those. No, but you know, you're right. You're looking at systems which are 20 years out of date, and the irony, of course, at least the perception I have, is in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the Pentagon was where the really spectacular information technology breakthroughs and automation were going on, and it was business that was trying to catch up, and now it's completely reversed.
Particularly in the area of business systems, all of the initiative is now on the private sector side. What you're talking about, accounting systems or purchasing systems or personnel systems, those kinds of IT systems. And the key is, in order to make use of those, you need to address the problems that Senator McCain referred to earlier with the ECSS system, where we tried to buy a commercial system, but then we refused to change our processes, so we ended up having to hire a squadron of computer programmers to try to reinvent a system that was working perfectly well in the commercial sector. And what we need to do is to change our business processes so that they make sense and that they can be appropriately automated, rather than automating an old process that really isn't very efficient in the first place.
Thank you very much, and again, thank you for your service and your personal support, assistance, and kindness.
Thank you, Senator Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Peter, I find it difficult to believe the many, many years that I personally had the honor of working with you. I've never met any of your family before. So, Mary Ellen, it's really nice to meet you. And for the benefit of my fellow senators up here, Daniel is at Harvard in computer science right now and made a real sacrifice to be here today. And you'll be very much rewarded to know how much everyone thinks of your daddy, because I don't recall anyone at any of these hearings who is more loved than he is. In fact, the chairman said that 99% was nonpartisan in his past, and talked about a few spirited conversations in the past. I can't remember any spirited conversations in the past that you and I have had.
Peter can.
Yeah, no, that he and I have had. I understand that. And even at the time that with the Big Four, I remember 2 years ago when the Big Four, we got to know each other pretty well. And so it was really a great experience. Anyone, if you just listen today to all these people that are running for president of the United States, when they talk about the military, they talk about the Department of Defense, they talk about the Pentagon, they talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. In fact, that term was made by Senator Reid a minute ago. And so we hear a lot about that, and that's a very popular thing, but it seems like no one's ever really done anything about it, maybe because we've never had anyone in this new position, in I think the world of Beth McGrath, but shouldn't have the background that you do. Now, you've been in the trenches. You know these problems that exist, and it's going to be a real tough thing for you to do. In reading the mission statement here, it said in 2008, DOD formally chartered the Office of DCMO to better synchronize, integrate, and coordinate the business operations of the department and ensure the optimum alignment and all that stuff. If there's anyone who has a background that is more conducive to that, it would be you. In your opening statement, you said that reduction should not take the form of across-the-board cuts, that cutting personnel without improving management processes or divesting functions will result in fewer people to do the same work, creating bottlenecks and backlogs that are counterproductive to the mission of the department. Well, I think everyone knows the easy thing to do is the MEDAX approach. Then it's somebody else's problem. But you're going to have to, and you've already done this, you deal with OSD, deal with the combatant commands. And when they come and testify, here are the ones that we talk to in the field, and they talk about what they could do. Sometimes this is not something that is really easy in our system. And does anything come to your mind now on how you're going to be able to make these, to focus these cuts and these efficiencies that we're depending upon you to do? That specifically you're going to dive right in. You know the job, and you know, well, you start from a position of knowledge. What are you going to be doing?
So, Senator, you know I've never shied away from taking on a difficult problem. If confirmed in the near future, I'll have about 1.5 years to work with, and I figure I have to take on some very specific targets to identify 5 or 6 priorities to go after. The Deputy Secretary has already asked the DCMO to review the organization of OSD and to look for places where we have redundant or superfluous organizations, and we'll continue that. I have a couple of areas that I want to look at specifically. I think the acquisition decision-making process is incredibly inefficient and has to be improved, and that it not only is too costly, but it slows things down in a way that's counterproductive. I think that the civilian personnel system can be dramatically improved. We need to streamline processes, and we need to look at organizations and make that process more efficient and less costly. There's several others like that, but I think that what I'm going to have to do is to target specific issues and to go after them, and I intend to do that.
Well, in a comment you made, I don't know if it was a response to a question or your opening statement, I can't remember, but you talked about the one person who's your predecessor in this job sometimes may not have had the support of the top management. And I'm going to ask you that if you run into that, you can come to us, because I don't recall having heard from that office before that there are some problems. So I would say this, and I think everyone you're looking at up here at this table, that if you're not getting the full support, there's one thing you can do about it, and that's come to us, and we'll make sure you do get the full support. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely, Senator, and I think that that's something that will help as I have to work with undersecretaries and tell them that we're going to have to take on issues in their organizations or chiefs or deputy chiefs of staff if they understand that the committee stands behind that and really wants to have really wants these efficiency measures and really wants to make improvements in this area. That will be very helpful. Thank you.
That's good, because they're going to have to know that we are behind you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hirano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking at the advanced policy questions that have been submitted to you, and the first question is, what's your understanding of the relationship between the Deputy Chief Management Officer and each of the following? And I noted that there were at least 14 sets of individuals and their offices, everybody from the Secretary of Defense to the business transformation offices of the military departments. That is a lot of people that you're attempting to work with to do the kinds of modernization that you've told us you want to do. So how many people do you have in your office to help you deal with 14 individuals and offices?
I can't remember. I think the
example.
staff of the DCMO is about 100 people. What I would say is, first of all, that in listing all those people that the office has to deal with, your staff is very good and very thorough in putting together those advanced policy questions. And second, I do think I have something of an advantage in taking that on, in that from my work with the committee, I already know all those people that I will have to interface with and have worked with them over the years. So I think that will put me in a position to do that.
I think those relationships are critical because anytime that you are dealing with folks who are already in place, who are supposed to be doing many of the things that you're doing within their own services, without that kind of relationship, they don't necessarily have to listen to you. So I commend you for that. Now, going to acquisition reform, you said that that it obviously needs to be much more efficient and less costly, and you said you would target specific issues in the area of acquisition reform and go after those. So could you tell us what your first specific target issue for acquisition reform would be?
So I need to be careful here because the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition Technology and Logistics is the acquisition policy official for the Department of Defense. The DCMO has a role here, as in other areas, in looking at process. We had a GAO report that the committee received recently that indicates that to get for a program manager of a major program in the department to get a milestone decision can take 2 years and 2,000 man-hours. They may have to go to 200 different offices to get their approval. That kind of process where you have to go to all these different offices, the program manager shouldn't have to do that. They're spending all their time briefing people and changing slides to get approval rather than working on the substance of the program. I think that process, without changing the acquisition policy, which this committee will do, the Undersecretary for Acquisition Technology will decide what the policy is, the process can be significantly improved, and I hope to work with Frank Kendall and others in the department to do that.
So, well, I am really hopeful that you'll be able to move the ball, because I know that the chairman has had all kinds of questions, as have many of us, regarding acquisition reform. It's not exactly transparent, and I think, for example, if you would be looking at things like contracts, the kind of contracts we put in place, the requirement process. I mean, would you agree that the more specific we are as to what it is we want, that would limit the changes that we make that just add to the cost? There's a whole range of things that are very specific to the acquisition process, and complicated as it is.
Yes, Senator. There are a whole range of things like that need improvement. This committee has made significant strides in the past, and I understand that the chairman has made it a priority to address that issue again this year. I know it continues to be a priority for the department, and I will make whatever contribution I can if confirmed.
We've had questions relating to cybersecurity. I think that is one of the most vulnerable areas of vulnerability across departments. Can you talk a little bit more about how you would make sure that that DoD addresses its cybersecurity needs in an appropriate way?
I should defer that question to my son, who is the IT expert in the family. But the DCMO works closely with the CIO, the Chief Information Officer of the department, who really is more the technology person, the IT technology side. The DCMO is more on the business process side. I will work, if confirmed, I would work closely with Terry Halverson, who's the Chief Information Officer of the department, and is heavily focused on cybersecurity issues. And one of the things that you look at in the chaotic systems environment the department has, where we have so many different systems run by so many different people, is that presents too many targets. And
Yes.
One of the things that Mr. Halverson is working on is streamlining that system, consolidating, which not only enables you to be more efficient and have a better business process, but also should enable a more secure environment.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Senator.
you, Mr. Chairman.
In the rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Levine, I understand that you've been here for a long time, a lot longer than I have been, and it would appear to me that before you would have made a major change, moving from this side to that side, that you would have had a number of conversations with the individuals who will employ you, and you would have had discussions about your capabilities and your ability to actually get the job done. I'd like to explore just a little bit. You've indicated that, number one, as a DCMO, you're going to be responsible for the processes, but I'm just curious, in the discussions that you've had to convince you to want to do this job in the first place, and one that I suspect might make you more frustrated than a former governor coming into the United States Senate is, what did you receive in terms of an assurance of resources available to you, the assurances themselves that you would have the ability to get in and actually look at the different processes and open access. And finally, your access to the guys who can hire and fire and make a difference. What types of discussions and where are you at right now in that process?
When the Deputy Secretary, Secretary Work, talked to me about the job and asked me if I would do it, I said, "So you want to make me the most unpopular person in the Pentagon?" And he said, "Yes, and I'll be right there with you." And that was the assurance that I needed, that he understood that what the DCMO has to do is to go into basically other people's rice bowls and tell them they're not doing it right and they need to do it differently. And that's never going to be something that's popular in any organization, and certainly not an organization like the Pentagon. And he understands that that's what the DCMO needs to do, and he said he stands fully behind it and will be absolutely supportive of it. I did not get any assurance of more resources, and I don't think that would have been an appropriate. If there's some specific project that needs something, we'll try to find resources within the department and available resources. But I think that building a new office or a new bureaucracy is not the way you fight bureaucracy. We need to make use of the resources we have and not create some new structure to try to do that.
Do you believe the resources that are available to you will be capable? I mean, do you have the resources available to make a dent?
Senator, I don't believe that the resources of the DCMO office alone are sufficient. I don't think that any one office could be sufficient for that. What I believe is that with the commitment of the Deputy Secretary, I will be able to draw on other offices in the department and other expertise in the department. So, for example, if we're going to look at acquisition, we're going to have to work with the acquisition people, with Frank Kendall and his organization, and the service acquisition executives and their organizations, and they do have expertise, and we're going to have to draw on that expertise. We're going to have to draw on expertise from the private sector through the Defense Business Board and other mechanisms that are available to do that. So I think there are mechanisms to provide the support that we need and to provide the resources we need, but I don't think the answer is to build a huge new office.
You indicated that when we talk about the chain of command, and specifically that you felt comfortable coming back to us. Do you think that under the current chain of command and the responsibility that you've got to those individuals that will be your superiors, that you have access and that you believe you can come directly to this committee and ask for the resources or the assistance to get something done?
I think that the Secretary and Deputy Secretary understand very well where I'm coming from and the background that I have, and understand the relationship I have with this committee and look at that as a positive rather than a negative. So yes, I do think that's the case.
Thank you, sir. I'll yield back.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator McCaskill.
So many questions, so little time.
Senator, it's very strange to see you all from this side.
I can
and
imagine.
Meet you face to face for the first time rather than seeing the back of your head.
I can't imagine. And my swivel where I go, first to Jason and then to Peter, I don't know how this is gonna work out. First, I want to talk about the audit stuff. I was really disappointed when I found out in March that they have pulled the clean audit finding from the Marines.
Yes, Senator.
People that have been at this longer than I have, but I have certainly since the day I got here, tried to figure out, coming in as a former auditor, how in the world we had gotten to the point that the Department of Defense was incapable of being audited. So, my false sense of optimism that the Marines had finally come up with a clean audit, to now have it pulled because we found out about these suspense accounts at the Department of Treasury, and now not only do we not have a clean audit of the Marines, that is going to call into question the ability of us to get clean audits anywhere. And so briefly, can you give me any sense of what we can do about fixing this suspense account problem at the Department of Treasury for all of these commingling of funds that sound like to me funds that are looking for an appropriation but haven't found them?
Senator, I don't know the answer to that. Now, I do know that one of the even more troubling things about the Marine Corps audit is that I believe it was a 2011 clean audit that
Right.
got the clean opinion, which means that then we've done 2012, 2013, and 2014, and now we're told that we have the problem. So not only is the 2011 audit not good, but that means that the subsequent audits wouldn't be good either. I don't know why it took us 4 years to get to the point where that
Well, could you
problem was
find the
discovered.
answer to that question?
Yes, Senator. If
I would
confirmed,
really like
I
to
will
know the
look
answer
into
to
that
that
and get
question,
back to you on that. I don't know
The fact
how
that it
that's
took so
possible.
many years, I mean, this is like, I can't figure out why this is so hard.
It seems to me that if there was a problem with the 2011 audit, we should have known that in 2012, and we would have been working on it for 3 years by now and figuring out how to get traceability and fix it. And we shouldn't be hitting the point in 2015 where we learn about the problem. All I can say is I don't understand it, and if confirmed, I'll look into that and get back to you about it.
I also want to make a comment that I'm hopeful that no matter who gains the White House in 2016, regardless of which party, that I'm hopeful that the work that you have done on this committee will serve you well, and hopefully the next commander-in-chief would want to utilize continually your expertise that you have. You just start so much further down the line than anybody else who would take this job because of your incredible working knowledge of the labyrinth that is the process of acquisition and you know, how they spend money and the way they mess it up. And I just hope that you stick around. And I know you can't get this done in a year and a half, but I'm still going to keep banging about this contractor manpower thing. You know, we had the hearing back in 2012. You remember it. In July of last year, I sent a letter to the department asking for specific information about the implementing of a department-wide contractor manpowering reporting application. I mean, we have to know what we're buying through contractors, and we need to know it department-wide. We cannot evaluate whether or not we're getting a good deal with contractors or a bad deal with contractors if we don't even know how many contractors we have. I really would like you and would like a commitment from you today that you would at least help me figure out what the stall is here. Why is this so hard? And if you would comment on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, Senator. We have this requirement for a contractor inventory, for an inventory of the service contractors working for the department. I know this is an issue that's important to Senator Manchin as well. And there is an inventory system in place. It does produce a number. I checked yesterday, and I was told that the number of service contractors we currently have working for the Department of Defense is 629,000. In fact, it wasn't just 629,000, it was 629,000 so many hundred and such. It was a very precise number. The problem, now that I've told you that there is a number, is accuracy, as in with so many of the department systems. Contractors are hard to count, and the universe of contractors is hard to define. Because when you're doing service contracts, we have times when we hire service contracts by the person, and so we have a number of people. You also have places where you hire for a result. Like you have an elevator maintenance contract. You don't care whether you have 6 people working on it or 5. You're contracting to have the elevator operating. And so we have places where it's easier to count and places where it's harder to count. And we have different systems of counting in the different military departments. The Army has a system where they go out and they put as a term of all their contracts with service contractors, you have to tell us how many people you have working on it. The other military departments have a conversion factor where they say we're spending this number of dollars, we figure it must be this number of people. So the number sounds very precise, but it's a lot less precise than it sounds because of the techniques that they use to gather that information.
And the exact numbers may not be as important as the ability to compare apples to apples, branch to branch, service to service, whether or not we're getting value. If the elevator operators that are maintaining elevators in the Army are making 3 times as much as the elevator operators that are maintaining elevators for the Navy, we need to know that. And that's why this inventory is so important.
And so you need to have more information, not just about how many you have, but how you're hiring
Right.
them and whether you're hiring them the right way. Yes, Senator, I agree.
Okay,
with
get to
you.
work. We'll be watching.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Peter, I'd like to talk about two versions, one about personnel and the other about purchasing and contracts, which we've been talking about. Often, I think it's as much about process as it is policy. An example of this is personnel management. What do you think about human resources reform within the Department of Defense, and what can we do, what can Congress do to help facilitate more efficient HR practices?
The Defense Business Board reported earlier this year that, that the human resources area is an area where they think that there are significant efficiencies that can be achieved by the department, that it's an area where we have too many layers of management, too many managers with a small span of control. So you have one person, for example, managing 3 people, and then that person, those people managing 5 people, that you have too many layers of middle management. And so that's something we're going to have to look at. We're also going to have to look at efficiencies of specific processes. We have a civilian hiring process that I'm told it takes at least 6 months and maybe 8 months or more to hire a single individual to work at the Department of Defense. Well, that's just crazy. You lose some of the most talented individuals you're trying to hire because you can't offer them a job even though you know you want them to come work for you.
This is a problem throughout government.
It's a problem throughout government.
When you layer on the security clearance part, it could go up to 2 years.
And yes, and the security clearance is hard to deal with. There are changes that we're looking at in that area that this committee has asked the department to look at with what's called a continual security clearance process. But I think there's significant improvements also that can be made in the hiring process, and this relates to the issue of sort of too much bureaucracy. If you add in extra layers, then your different human resources offices spend time negotiating with each other instead of getting the job done. And we need to cut out some of those middle boxes and simplify the process.
So I take it that you see this as part of your responsibility to build a team to tackle this particular problem?
Absolutely, Senator.
Let's talk a bit about, we've talked about contracting and procurement. I have a modest suggestion that I utilized when I was governor, which is pick some typical cases and take, 5 or 6 different cases from the mundane, Fort Bragg needs 5 new sinks in their kitchens, to acquisition of a tank or something larger, and ask your people to prepare a chronology of all the steps necessary so that you can see it rather than talking in the abstract. You're saying, okay, why did it take 12 approvals to buy a sink? Or, I don't know if that's, and the same thing with services. I found that it's you can always get, they can blow the smoke at you when you're talking in generalities, but when you say, why did it take this long to get this printer in this office? Specific cases. I used to also call the 800 numbers, for the public,
Yeah.
and see what it, who answers, how long does it take, what do they tell you? I'll never forget calling the tourism office in Maine. Everything went fine until they said, we'll send you a brochure in 3 to 6 weeks. And it was June. In 3 to 6 weeks in Maine, summer's over. So the point is, you learn from, reaching into in a direct kind of way. I hope you'll try out some of those.
So, Senator, I'm going to have to choose my targets carefully with a limited amount of time. But one of the targets I hope to choose is the acquisition process, and particularly the acquisition milestone decision-making process that we use for major weapon systems. And I think you're exactly right that what we're going to need to do is we hear that program managers have to go to 200 different offices. We're going to have to document.
Take a real-life
for
case.
several programs, so maybe one from each of the services or something. Who is it you have to go to? What does this process actually look like when you diagram it? So that we can say, you can't do that anymore. It can't be that complicated.
Well, this may be a moment in time where the stars are literally aligned, starting with the chairman of this committee, to Ash Carter, to Frank Kendall, to you. That's a very special constellation of people who are very aware of this problem and that it has to be addressed. And we may not have an opportunity like this for years, so I hope that you will be a real irritant on this subject, not, as I mentioned to you yesterday, you don't want to look back 10 years from now and saying, gee, I wish I had pushed on this.
Senator, some people tell me I'm too good at being an irritant, but yes, I will do my best. So.
Yeah, I had that experience once in a court where I said, Judge, I don't want to beat my head against a stone wall, and he said, Attorney King, I know of no one in Maine better qualified for that function. I appreciate your willingness to take this on, and I do hope you'll view this as an extraordinary opportunity, working with a great team, and with the support of this committee. I think some good things can be done for America, both in terms of security and in terms of our taxpayers. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Senator.
Incredibly wise judge. Senator Ayat.
Well, first of all, Peter, I'm so thrilled that you're going to be nominated for this. I've been so impressed with your work on SASC, and the department is very fortunate to have someone of your caliber to go over and serve there. And so I'm really enthusiastically looking forward to voting for you, and I'm very glad that you've translated your service in the Senate over to help and take that knowledge over to the Department of Defense. So
Thank you, Senator.
thank you, and thank you to your family for all the sacrifices they've made over the years for many of us on SASC and all the questions we've asked, so we appreciate it. I know that many of the questions that I had already been asked, including, I'm looking forward to you spending some time on the high-risk list that GAO puts together and really focusing on that and trying to address some of those concerns, and I know that that's already been directed at you.
Yes, Senator. That will be a priority.
And one of the things that I think we've struggled with here and thought about is just the size of management and headquarters organization of the Department of Defense. It's really grown fairly significantly over the last 15 years. And given the challenges that we're facing in terms of resourcing and what we need to do to defend the nation, I wanted to get your thoughts on how the size, the composition at the Department of Defense Management Headquarters, what thoughts you have to make that more efficient, and is it the right size, or should we be looking at shifting what happens there?
So, Senator, I think that, first of all, it can't be the right size. We have to make it more efficient. We have to make it smaller. We have to find cuts. I think that's hard to do. It's hard to get your arms around management headquarters of the department. You have shifting definitions, and I know there's a case that Senator McCain was concerned about, for example, where the Air Force claimed to have downsized some of its headquarters, and apparently they moved something to a separate command or created a separate command to do it. That kind of thing does happen, changing definitions so you don't have to change the numbers. I believe we have to change the processes, we have to change the structures, and we have to find things that we have been doing that we can either do better or not do at all. And that to me is the core, is to take on those issues. But we have to get smaller.
Yeah, terrific. I think so too, especially as you look at just the growth and the size and obviously the priorities that we need to have and what we're trying to accomplish. So I think all of us are looking forward to working with you in this new position, and I look forward to enthusiastically supporting you. So thank you for your willingness to do this. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Senator. And of course, I come talk to you anytime if you have specific concerns in these areas as we go forward.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, Mr. Levine, Peter, if I may, thank you for the service you've given to this body and to the Senate and to this committee for many, many years. And we really, all of us, I think, in a bipartisan way, leaned on you pretty heavy, and you did a great job.
Well, thank you, Senator.
We look forward, and I want to thank you for taking that experience level that you have to this next level. You could have very easily taken another path, but staying in what you know and what you've been able to do over the years, knowing our concerns means a great deal to all of us in this committee, and we thank you on behalf of the committee. And let me just say that, Peter, every time we've talked and we get a money crunch, it's all reduction of staff. I always hear about reduction of staff, and we throw the frontline soldier out there first. And I know you've heard the concerns we've had, and you and I have talked about contracting, procurements, all the things and the waste that we have. And there's not a person that doesn't want to defend this country and make sure that we support our troops. With that being said, I've been particularly concerned with the growth of the headquarters staff. Every time we talk about reduction of staff, no one ever talks about headquarters staff in light of the drawdown of what we're talking about, military services. And it's sometimes hard to get visibility as to whether cuts to headquarters staffs are actually creating more efficient organizations or simply reshuffling the decks on the Titanic.
So
Is that something in your bailiwick that you'll be able to get a hold of?
It will be, Senator. The Deputy Secretary has asked the DCMO office, as I understand it, to review the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which is I guess, I don't know what the number, somewhere in the order of 2,000, 3,000 people, and figure out where there can be cuts made. Now, that's civilian personnel in the Office of Secretary of Defense. There's, this is one of the misleading things about management headquarters is that, of course, there's contract support, and there are other support elements in there that you don't see on the surface. But I expect it is something that we will look at actively and see where we can bring it down.
You know,
And
go ahead.
not just the Office of Secretary of Defense, because one of the problems with the department is we have so many different management headquarters, and we need to focus on all of them.
Let me just say this. I don't take a lot of time, but, you know, when you look at the support and look what's going on, we spend, what, $600 billion, $650 on defense right now. And when you look at all the other countries combined where we are a superpower, and we want to remain that superpower. We want to make sure that our people are best trained, best equipped, have the latest technology. We're always on the vision of the cutting edge of what's the next technology we need to keep world peace. I'm in favor of every bit of that. But I have to look people in the eye in West Virginia and basically say, well, we had to cut here, here, and here because we had to spend here, here, and here. Efficiencies, without the audits, without knowing what's going on, without prudent business decisions, running an organization, the largest in the world, the size of the Pentagon, it's going to take tough management, and someone's got to bite the bullet here. And when you come back to us and said, listen, we've looked at everything humanly possible, and with all of our incurred costs, we just can't, that's fine. But if there's ways to run it better, and that's where I think there is more efficiencies to be gotten out of this, that's what I'm looking for.
Yes, Senator. You know, you've had the testimony before the committee, the chief's telling you that with the sequestration level budgets, we don't have the money to support the force structure we have now. So absolutely, wherever we can find efficiencies, wherever we can get savings from the infrastructure and the support services, we need to do that.
When I look at the Guard, you know, being former governors, and I know Senator King being a former governor, we were very fond of our Guards because we saw what we asked them to do every day. This is not the Guard that we knew. This is not the Guard of 20 years ago. This is a whole different Guard. I mean, they're going on front line prepared, ready to go. I don't know why we don't utilize them more for cost savings than going into the contracting route that we've gone. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm anxious to get that report, and I know that Senator McCaskill asked you about that, but
yeah, and of course, you've got the Independent Commission on the Army, which will be looking at that issue and coming back to you within the next year or so.
Thank you, sir.
I have one final question. Senator McCain and I were talking back and forth about, you know, we've told the Pentagon to get an audit. And the question is, there are agencies, and Senator McCain reminded me, Homeland Security has a private outside auditor that comes in. But I think we're jumping over a basic question, which is, can the Department of Defense be audited? Has anyone ever asked, you know, the outside experts to come in and just answer the first question, i.e., yes, it can be audited, but it has to, you have to have these changes, these changes, these changes, these changes. I think we've assumed it is auditable, and then you haven't been able to do it, and it's frustrating, et cetera. So one of the first questions you asked, you know, can we audit this place?
So back in 2001 or 2002, I helped write a piece of legislation, advised the committee on a piece of legislation, which said, essentially, don't even try to audit the Pentagon right now. What it said is, you need to determine that you are at a state where your books and records are in a good enough shape that it's worth hiring an auditor and spending the money on an auditor before you plunge money into that. Because right now, they're so bad that you're just sending bad money after good. I mean, this is good money after bad. You can't do it right now. And so there is now a process, which we have in law, and it's been in law for several years, which says the department has to assert that they're audit ready before they can spend money for auditors. And they're now reaching a point where they're willing to make those assertions. So there, as I say, there has been a definite progress over that period of time. We're not where we need to be. And frankly, I think that one of the things that the committee needs to think about and the department needs to think about is, if I'm right and we don't make the 2017 deadline, how do we keep that pressure on after 2017? Because the 2017 deadline has put some real pressure on the department to make improvements, but you have to think, okay, so if you get to 2017 and it didn't happen, how do we make sure that the same pressure remains on in 2018 and we don't just say, well, we blew it, now we're going to give up and go home, because we can't afford to do that.
Just a final quick point. I thank Chairman for his indulgence. that process is sort of self-certification. We're ready.
Right.
Wouldn't it make sense to have a private auditor come in and say, yeah, they are ready, we've looked at it, the systems are in place, et cetera? Because I think some of our problems are, a la the Marine Corps, we're ready.
The
do it.
comptroller is working with major accounting firms on that exact process. In fact, one of the issues that they've had over time is they have to have audit firms consult with them on that issue. They're also going to have independent audit firms come and help in the audit when it takes place, and they have to make sure they get them lined up so that they're not all conflicted out, because they have to have both audit firms to advise them and audit firms to conduct the audit. But yes, they are doing that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, just to pursue that line again, I see nothing wrong with bringing in an outside auditor to look at the whole situation and see if they can't do the auditing. And the Department of Homeland Security somehow was able to get audited. They're a pretty big organization by an outside auditor. We've been screwing around for 15 years now.
We've got to get it done.
Okay,
I agree
so-
with you, Senator.
So an outside auditor, I think, is at least an option that we ought to explore or even try. Well, I congratulate you again on your appointment. We look forward to working with you. I want to assure you the next hearing will not be nearly as pleasant as this one was. And we congratulate you and also appreciate you very much. And congratulations to your wonderful family. Hearing is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.